There are currently no regulations that train police officers uniformly when it comes to dealing with suspects that have disabilities. And as a result, we're seeing all of these cases of police brutality popping up that involve people with mental disabilities. Now, it's not rare for us to report on stories where police officers are using excessive force on regular, average Americans, but we're seeing that they mishandle people that have disabilities on a regular basis as well. And one case that kind of highlights that is the case of Robert Ethan Saylor. He's a 26-year-old from Maryland, and he actually died of asphyxiation back in January after 3 police officers confronted him. And I should note that they were off-duty police officers. They confronted him because he wanted to watch Zero Dark 30 for the second time without a ticket. Now, that case kind of symbolizes an issue that we're seeing, and there's really no way to approach it other than coming up with appropriate ways to handle the situation, appropriate ways to train police officers so they know what to do if they're dealing with someone who has a mental disability. Now, in this case, Saylor had Down syndrome, and, you know, one expert said, hey, look, it's obvious, you know, it's not like it's a hidden thing. You can tell that he has Down syndrome, and the officers didn't deal with it appropriately. But I really like this quote from a professor at New York's John Jay College. He says, we as human beings tend to approach everything through our own prism. And if someone is acting extremely peculiar, we're immediately frightened. If you're a cop, you're probably thinking this person is a danger. And I like that because I think that's a fair statement. If you don't necessarily know right off the bat that that person has some sort of disability, you might think that you're in danger and you'll react in a violent way.
So that goes to the bubble theory that we always talk about here. Everybody lives in their own bubble. But in this particular case, I'm not buying it at all. And I actually think this is part of the police state that we've all become accustomed to. So if someone is trying to watch a second movie or watch a movie for a second time without repaying for a ticket, well, it calls for extreme action, right? So you got to get 3 cops on it.
By off-duty police officers.
Right. And so I don't know the details of that. That smacks of the movie theater trying to crack down on it. And so, you know, I don't know if they were being paid by the movie theater or not, or if there's just some random tough guys in the police force, et cetera. They got to take this, young guy with Down syndrome and 3 of them and at some point asphyxiate him until he dies, right? And by the way, the person who was with him, there was someone with him. And they said, hey, listen, I know him, and I just please be patient for a second. We'll get it under control. And in the police state we have now, we don't remain patient. We don't take our time. We attack. We attack with all deliberate force until the target is neutralized.
Yeah.
And then after the kid is dead, then you're like, oh, he had Down syndrome. Oh, who could have known? Well, the person who was telling you right next to you that he has Down syndrome and that you should just calm down for a second before you do it. Look. And if you're the jury, you got to hear out all the evidence. We don't know, all the details of what the guy was doing, how the cops, what kind of hold the cops had on him, whether it was reasonable or whether it was unreasonable in the way that they had him so that he wound up dying, right? But you didn't need to go in with that level of force in the first place, because now our assumption is always just tase him, shoot him, asphyxiate them, do whatever you got to do until the target is just. But we're not targets, we're citizens, okay? You're supposed to be protecting us. Who are you protecting when you grapple with this kid with Down syndrome in the movie theater? Are you protecting the rest of the citizens? At most, you're protecting the corporation that runs that movie theater, because God forbid anyone should do the capital offense of watching a movie twice without paying twice.
And there's really this mentality of act first, ask questions later. And you see that with the police force, but you also see that with people now with laws like Stand Your Ground, right? Where it's like, just do what you need to do if you think something is a threat and then ask the questions later. And I think that maybe that thought process and that mentality within the police force kind of needs to change. Like, just stop for a second, reevaluate the situation, and if no one is really in danger, I mean, this is an unarmed 26-year-old with Down syndrome. If no one's really in danger, just really reevaluate the situation and then act accordingly. To get to a point where 3 officers need to be on him and he dies as a result of asphyxiation, I mean, that's crazy.
Look, one final piece in this story that's just heartbreaking is he actually apparently loved cops, and he looked up to them, and his last words were, "It hurt. Call my mom."